Welcome to Environmental Concerns, sponsored by Breathe California, which is the lung health nonprofit for the state of California. Today, we're going to be talking with my good friend Hampton Kennon, who seems to be an expert on everything. And while he denies being a lung expert, he's had two major lung operations, which give us some hints on some environmental hazards that affect your lungs. And so we'll be talking with Hamp for the next hour. Stick around and we'll start up after this public service announcement.
My name is Rene Montez. I've been using the CPAP machine, I would guess 10 years. I got so accustomed to it, I don't go anywhere without it. I take it with me everywhere. From the moment I put it on, I thought it was the greatest thing because the breathing was a lot easier, and after using it for a couple nights, I felt a lot of energy. Breathe California is fabulous.
Welcome back. I'm Terry Trumbull, a volunteer for Breathe California. We're the lung health organization for the state of California, fighting against smoking or air pollution. If you find this program to be appealing and you want to help volunteer, each year we help over 100,000 people with lung difficulties or in things like community health fairs. I've done about 9 of those, and you sit at a table with a bunch of brochures and you just say hi to people, come up and tell them how to find Breathe California, which is basically just what you see underneath my name, the website, lungsrus.org. So Hamp Kennon is a friend of mine and want to welcome you to the show, Hamp.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Appreciate the invitation.
You were on 3 years ago, and we've had thousands of requests to hear you again. It's pretty overwhelming.
That's amazing.
Well, I mentioned your 2 lung operations. Was that okay?
Well, I guess that's okay. It was actually one operation, but 2 lungs.
Yeah. So, what caused your lungs to need to be replaced?
Well, I was diagnosed with acute lung failure, and they didn't know why. But after my lungs were removed and pieces sent all over the world, they came up with the thought that toner from a copy machine that I had beside my desk for 35 years, and it leaked toner. They decided that I had toner
Poisoning.
pretty much. It just ruined my lungs. My lung, toner has just like it does on paper, it sticks to the paper, right? Well, when you breathe it in, it sticks to your lungs. So eventually my lungs ceased to function because they were filled up with toner.
Well, your lungs are, most of your body's pretty good at repairing itself from natural hazards, but this is something that could have never evolved normally out in Mother Nature.
That's true, but there's so many things in nature that ruin your lungs that it's, they didn't know where to point the finger when they were looking at my lungs. They said, well, it can't be smoking, it can't be this, and that, and the other. But eventually, I think the lab was in France that figured out that it was toner. And then they found it at UCSF and found the same elements, I guess. So
Well, I think there's a very important message in this. It's easy to act like it's no big deal with all the environmental safety hazards that we have, toxic chemicals floating around. everywhere, or even ones that we might have in our garage. And they all do represent a hazard to us.
Occasionally, we go down to Platforms Beach to watch the sunset. And many people go out on the beach to have fires on the beach. And they burn creosote. They burn
Yeah.
pieces of what's washed up on them on the shore. And creosote is multiple poisons that have been injected or forced into timbers. So they
Because
said,
they're good at killing insects and other natural things.
yeah, just like people, you sit there and breathe that,
Yeah.
and it cannot possibly be good for you. We roll up the windows in the car, but I'm not sure that people even think about that. That after my lung failure, I've thought a lot about different things that I could do that might cause my lungs to fail, or I might be doing that would cause damage to my lungs. So I don't subject myself to a lot of things like I used to. I used not to think anything about being in an area with people smoking, but I don't do that anymore. I stay away from it.
Well, smoke has, tobacco at least has about 80 different types of hazardous chemicals in it. When you burn it, they combine with tobacco to produce a lot of bad stuff that you mentioned. And wood smoke's the same way. In the winter in the San Francisco Bay Area, it's illegal to burn because that's the major health scare that we have in air quality in the winter in most of California is wood smoke.
That's one of them for
Yeah.
sure. But just inside your house, there's a lot of things inside your house that could cause you to have lung failure. Um, the least favorite of them is cooking with gas, because when you fire up your gas cooktop or your oven, all kinds of carcinogens just blossom in the air.
Most people don't know this, but typically the air quality in your house is about 5 times as bad as it is outdoors. So in San Francisco Bay Area, they violate health standards set by national EPA, and they're way over the limits set by the state EPA, which are much stricter than the federal ones. But they're both based on your health. And it's really wise to air out your house and get all this stuff gone when there's a time you can do it, like spring or fall. Nobody wants to do it in the winter because it's too cold, and they don't want to do it in the summer because it's too hot.
There is a solution to that. It's not a cheap one, but there is a solution to that. And that's electronic air cleaners, which you can install on most heating systems or HVAC systems. And they pretty much do away with whatever's floating around in your house, especially allergens.
Well, speaking about that, um, is your lung health such that allergens, toxics, all the other things that are floating around, you're more susceptible to problems? Or are you better off than most of us?
Actually, my lungs are 40 years younger than I am.
Still
So,
doesn't answer the question.
um, some things bother me that didn't prior to the transplant. Um, and here has extreme allergies to almost anything. And I've noticed that sometimes when she's sneezing, my nose will be running. So I think we're probably allergic to some similar things, like there's fir trees across the street, and that might be one of them. I think that's not only are people allergic to them, but they're somewhat toxic. So lungs lungs don't come with a warranty,
It's
and
kind of
so
up to us to take care of them.
well, they can come diseased as well. I mean, if you get down to the point where you really need a set of lungs, you can have some infections in those lungs. And a lot of people that have lung transplants end up with infections that are really hard to cure. But eventually they can. Eventually they cure them, but it's not without some compromise of their health. So I don't know of any organ transplant that is just free of pitfalls, I'll say that.
Yeah.
A big problem with transplants is the drugs that you take after the transplants to keep you from rejecting the lungs and keep you from having infections, and that's
Having
what
having your lungs rejected does not sound like a healthy way to live.
not for long. If your body decides that those lungs are foreign, or if the lungs that were transplanted into your body decides that your body is foreign, and they start rejecting your body, then you got a problem.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
and pretty popular.
while we were talking about smoke mostly in terms of fires, and obviously that's a major problem in California, where when I was in college, the state was described as entirely a desert except for the coast north of San Francisco. And so all that stuff burning is pretty tough on your lungs. And smoking tobacco is like you're intentionally trying to kill yourself, in that it's causes all sorts of problems, including lung cancer, which my grandfather died of, and his wife died of it just by being around him, which is called secondhand smoke. So I gather when I come to visit you, you'd prefer that I didn't pull out a cigar and act like I'm Winston Churchill.
You can do it outside all you want to.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. So, what other environmental hazards do you worry about? You grew up in Tennessee, and I'm not really talking about the fact that you told me last night that you'd be out fishing in a lake or a swamp and water moccasins would drop from trees into your boat. But
That happened a few times. It wasn't a daily event, you know. Um, Water is a killer.
well, obviously, if you fall into it and you can't
No,
swim to shore,
I'm just talking about drinking water. It's full
yeah,
of carcinogens. And the air, of course, carries whatever the water gives up. You know, if it evaporates, it's in the air.
right.
So our air is anything but clean. And there seems to be a pretty fierce movement to make sure it's not. I don't understand that. I'm talking about a political movement. I don't get that. I think
Well,
anything.
right now at the national level, the movement is to say it's just fine to dump your waste on us in the air, which is what air pollution is. It's companies failing to correct and get rid of their pollution and just throwing it away in the air. So that's a pretty significant problem. But being fair to the companies, 85% of air pollution arises from us driving cars around, cars and trucks.
I saw something on one of the nature stations about ozone holes,
Right.
in it. And
Well, ozone is actually quite a dangerous toxic chemical on its own, but a major part of air pollution in this country and in the world has been protecting the ozone layer around Earth because it protects us from dangerous radiation coming from the sun.
and it's certainly not people using hairspray that are causing these huge holes in the ozone layer. I think the special I saw on television about these huge ponds in the tundra that are just bubbling up ozone, just coming straight out of the earth is that's probably what's going to get us.
Well,
as the climate
as a former environmental professor, there's an awful lot of ways of getting us, I'm afraid.
As the climate warms, which some people say it's not doing, but I think we can pretty much establish that it is.
Yeah.
But as it warms, more tundra melts and more of the stuff comes out, more ozone comes out. So that it's just constant release of the ozone at the poles or at the North Pole. I don't know.
At least inside the Arctic Circle.
Yes.
So we need to take a break for about 30 seconds here. Hamp, we'll be back with more discussion with Hampton Kennon in about 30 seconds.
The different therapeutic methods that we can help our very low socioeconomic status clients who have no alternatives, no anything, and there's still about 15 different resources we got out of this that if you have no resources, no service connection, you can still get aid.
That they are connected, one encourages the other, and that the process of change from backing off from the tobacco is the same as backing off from any other addictive drug.
Everyone can benefit from this training that we just were offered today.
Welcome back. This is Environmental Concerns, sponsored by Breathe California. We have 6 chapters in the state. We're the organization that works to protect you from damage or help you to live with the damage associated with about 13 different forms of contamination that cause problems to your lung. Kennon and I are talking about that and our lives in general as affected by toxics in the air. So one of the things I wanted to bring up, Hamp, is we've talked about the air quality being worse in your home, everybody's home. But there was a proposal by the Clinton administration 30 years ago to start regulating workers in their homes to make sure that they were safe. And that was all based on our occupational safety and health laws, which have done a wonderful job of protecting workers in their workplaces generally. You see any problems with me being an inspector coming to your home once a month to make sure you're working safely?
I see a problem with you coming into my home once a month. No. What
How
look
about your
forward,
neighbor's home?
uh, would I look forward to a stormtrooper coming in and saying, I've got to inspect your house, stand over in the corner or something like that? I'd probably have a problem with that.
Well, you summarized it there. It was blown out of the water by people saying, go to hell. We don't want you in our house doing inspections. Um, but it does mean working from home can have some serious health related problems.
Yeah, obesity, I think, is one of them.
Absolutely. I mean, Americans are terribly heavy compared to what our bodies were built to do. Um, I will say you're very impressive. You still look like you could play tight end in high school.
If I could waddle down the field that fast, and I I was in pretty good shape before I had the transplant.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that go wrong with drugs that you take. As a matter of fact, some of the drugs that I take causes my system to eat muscle and produce fat.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think I'm gonna play tight end anywhere anytime soon, but there's a lot of stuff that off gases in your house that people don't think about. You know, your furniture.
Your fireplace or your heaters that are burning hot fossil fuels.
Yeah, I understand that there's a big movement against people using natural gas to heat their homes. I think that possibly more efficient furnaces and more efficient exhaust systems might serve well to make fossil fuels more acceptable in homes. There's the big push here in California for everybody to have an electric furnace, an electric this, an electric that, an electric the other. But our energy providers don't seem to be able to provide energy in a continuous fashion. Our systems seem to fail on a regular basis. If you have an electric stove and you have everything is electric, then your whole system's failed. And top that off, they want us to have electric cars. I don't have anything against electric cars. I do have something against a system that says you have to have an electric car and you have to have everything electric, and we're going to provide that for you. When historically, they've never been good at providing it continuously. So there's a problem there. I don't know if there's a solution to it or not, but
Well, California's arguably the only responsible state moving to go to electric cars, both because of air pollution and because the air pollution, the carbon dioxide is the principal cause of climate change. And we basically are going to be underwater if we don't, as a world, get on top of climate change. I just watched an episode of a TV show where the prime minister of a group of islands in the South Pacific saw the rise of the sea due to climate change inundate and make all of the islands of this tropical paradise into reefs that could injure ships because they couldn't be seen, but no place left for people to live. Um, so
that's
I
probably
saw you want to say something, Ham?
so that's probably the anticipated trend.
Right. I think any island that's less than 10 feet is scheduled for inundation.
It's my impression that downtown Miami floods every time there's a high tide. like the fronts of office buildings and streets in several areas flood because of sinking as well as rising of the ocean. I think some of the buildings are sinking and the water levels risen. So that's a combination that I think we can expect to see everywhere.
Well, I went to Venice about 10 years ago, and they were spending millions on some gates to surround the city from the Adriatic Sea. And the basic idea is those gates would be put up anytime the water level would otherwise get into the city, which is something like 40% of the time right now. So Venice is not necessarily a joy to visit unless you bring some good waterproof boots along.
It's over with. You'll need a wetsuit.
So, are you supportive of all these changes we need to make to cut down on using fossil fuels? Didn't sound like you were too thrilled about your car.
I'm not so much concerned about looking. It's great for us to have electricity as our energy source, but that has to be generated somewhere. And when you're charging batteries in a car, those batteries eventually will have to be taken out and put in a dump. So I'm not so sure that this whole idea of batteries in cars in their current design is really a great idea, because that's going to become a tremendous source of pollution.
Well, my experience with metal recyclers is that they're sensational recycling anything with metal in it. So I have no worries about batteries. So, Hamp, we got about a minute left. What do you want people to remember about our conversation? And if they can't remember it, our next show is going to be you and I again.
How much fun can we have, huh? They need to remember to be careful what they breathe. I think that's a major thing. They need to air out their houses. They need to change the filters on their furnaces. And they need to pay attention. Period.
Very good. Well, we've been talking with Hampton Kennon, and as I mentioned, next week's show will also involve him. I haven't the faintest idea what we're going to talk about, but it's going to be relating to your health and how to take care of yourself. See you then.